Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Carla from MindPlore with Carla and Friends, and we are Pastor Billy will be back. This happens often. We will, and I forgot where I was. And we are here today to talk about freedom. This is MindPlore with Carla and Friends. And it's basically a chance to open up your awareness to new things, new ideas, and new thoughts, and make you more aware. So, having said that, I guess I should define freedom for myself. Freedom to me means being myself and not being afraid to speak, not being afraid to live my own way of life. Many years I've been told, "Oh, you can't do that," and Carla, please, from my mom, "Carla, please don't laugh so loud. You're going to scare the birds away." And they can hear you in Denmark all the way from Philadelphia. And I'm like, "Mom, stop it." But now and I would quiet down. But now I allow myself to be more me and not to be governed by other people. And I'm going to pass the mic over to Pastor Billy. What is freedom to you, Pastor Billy?
Let me unmute myself. And Carla, great to be on with you today. Asma, greetings. Avi, I'm checking in from New York City. And New York City, as you know, it's the city that never sleeps. And we're here in the land of the free and the home of the brave. For me, freedom, and I love the definition that I'm looking at right now, it's the power of self-determination, the power of self-determination. In other words, when we talk about freedom, we're talking about, and Carla, this is what you just said, it's the freedom to be ourselves. And it's the freedom that you can self-determine your life. It's emancipation, it's deliverance. But I love that word power. When you talk about freedom, and of course, being a resident and a citizen of the United States, I mean, that really is what happened 245 years ago, that freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press. And the countries where I go and do humanitarian work, oftentimes it really breaks my heart that people are not free. I mentioned during our prep time that I'm on my way to Afghanistan. And unfortunately for the Afghan people, and particularly for Afghan women and girls, there is no freedom. So I'm grateful with five granddaughters and three daughters, that they have the freedom and they have the power of self-determination. So that's what I do around the world is I go to places where there is limited or no freedom and attempt to give that power of self-determination to girls and women, to free them really from the shackles that their culture, their country, their tribe, the shackles that they are coupled with. And so for me, freedom is the power of self-determination. So I'll leave it there, Carla, and Asma and Avi can respond to that as they wish.
Asma.
Exactly, as Sir said, I really agree with that. And there, I was also looking at, and I just got that like freedom is the power to speak, to do, and to think without any hindrance. So I just want to focus on one word, think. Actually, I am working on that So this is my favorite thing. One can think without any hindrance, without any present thing. Like this is also very important. And for me, this is at the actual freedom that one can find out, because I also quoted that I really love and the one thing, God loves the people who search and find new ways. So how you can find out these new ways? When you think, when you use that. There are few people. This is, in fact, I can't say few. There are number. In fact, majority is enslaved through by the thinking, by the brain. And because of that, there we are not seeing the peace. There a lot of things are we are seeing that are creating conflicts, and because of that, we are not happy. So I believe that when one can get free from there, things gonna solve. Their peace would come. So we need to focus on that. Like there are sometimes we are free to speak, we are free to do the actions, but we are not free here. Like we can't think freely. And when they're like when you can't think freely, then I think your actions, your power of speak, everything would affect. You can't perform. You can't do. I think you can't do anything in a better way. In this way, you are just following the few things, and you're just moving on. Even in religion, it is said. I think every religion it is said. Think, search, and believe everywhere. God, nature is also give us the message. Like everywhere I read this, I study science, so especially biology. In biology it is very difficult to find some law. There are very few laws. We can count them, one or two. Why? Because in biology we study the life, we study the nature, and in nature there are a lot of variations. There are a lot of things. You can't find something that where you need to stick, like things should be like this. There is nothing like that. So nature always gives you the hints to find, to think more and freely think and look at the things. If I make like I always quote that if I make two genders, there are also the third gender, and that's pretty normal. If some people have 5 fingers, there also someone has 6. Why this is happening? What is this? So I think that's very important. That's very interesting. So we should focus on that. One should be free from there. This is what I want to say.
Avi.
Thanks, everyone. I love this topic so much. It's like freedom is connected to my heart. I feel very passionate about freedom, and it's a little bit of a scary subject too for people. It's like if everyone is really free, what if they do this and what if they do that, and the fear starts to get involved. So related to what Asma is saying in terms of thinking, having the freedom to really think, I really encourage everyone to contemplate the idea of freedom. And there could be, issues, bumps in the roads with allowing people to be free. But what I've discovered is it's the best that we can do. That ultimately freedom, allowing people to have as much freedom as possible, promoting freedom, is going to lead to the best things, for all of us. This great things were already said. This idea about thinking freely and how to do it, and that maybe is even it's a rare thing. This is quite interesting, to reflect on. Am I thinking freely? Do I have freedom of thought? And how can I get more freedom of thought? What does it take to do that? And so that connects me to my spiritual practice, meditation, when I start to realize the patterns of the mind. And once I realize, being aware is the first step. I can't really change anything until I'm aware. One thing that helps me a lot is realizing that I am free, no matter what. I am free, and everyone, I think, has a certain amount of freedom, right? Like you can't take away someone's freedom to think. It's actually a very precious thing, no matter my environment. you can't take that freedom away from me. So realizing that and appreciating the freedoms that I do have might lead to more. So that's what I have for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Ozma. Thank you, Avi. I'm a little late on thanking Ozma. I have a question. Does freedom start within the individual, or does it happen because others around them are free? And I think I'd like Avi to answer that question first.
It's a great question. I would say both. You know, it reminds me of the chicken or the egg type of thing. One thing that I've come to realize is that, you know, I'm affected by my environment, and my environment is affected by me. So by working on myself and fostering more freedom in myself, I not only improve myself, I improve my environment. I'm a leader in that kind of way. But the actual environment myself is also going to affect my ability to do that, because I'm a social creature. I believe I'm a part of nature. I'm going to be affected by what's around me. So it's a great question, and my answer would be that both are true.
I'm not done with you, Avi. You live in an ashram where there are certain things you need to do. Do you feel that you're free to be you in the ashram, or do you need to be a part of the community in order to be a part of the ashram? Now, I've been in ashram, so I know I have some knowledge of it.
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting. Someone asked me this question recently, and it was the first time, actually, to be honest, I didn't really contemplate it so much. The freedoms that I've given up from living here and the freedoms that I've gained. That's really what it's about. So I do give up some freedoms being here, but at the same time, I've never felt so free before in my life. And that's why I'm here. And back to what Asma said in terms of freedom of thought, there are more free thinkers that live here than any other place that I've come to. And the effect of that really is profound for me in my life. I feel like I have permission to question. That's what I want to do. I want to be curious. I want to talk about what's going on. I want to experience what's going on. And having other people to do that with, that's a wonderful thing, you know. And so even though I was kind of more of a living in like the mainstream American, you know, culture life, often I did not feel that way. Other people did not want to question like that. They kind of just wanted to follow more of what they'd be told, I would say, and not go deeper and not investigate. It made them uncomfortable. And that made me uncomfortable that they were uncomfortable. So yes, I give up certain things that are here. There's certain, you know, restrictions. A lot of them I'm in alignment. Sometimes I feel like I can't be myself in certain ways. I don't think I need to get into all the examples of that. But overall, I would say I feel a lot more free living in this community, and that's why I'm here.
It may seem like I'm picking on you, Avi, but you're bringing
I love it.
so many questions.
Go ahead, Carla. Pick on Avi.
I will. I'm getting back to you, Pastor Billy, because you're a pastor and you also live in a situation where you're expected to be a certain way. And I'm going to throw this out to you too. Living in an ashram, are you sort of forced to think in a way that maybe you wouldn't be thinking if you were living out in New York or in the country with a big farmhouse? I'm just curious. And then we'll go to Pastor Billy. I'll stop picking on you.
I don't mind. Wait, so the question is, am I forced to think in a certain way living here? Yeah.
No, are you sort of forced to not think, but act in a certain way? People think, well, if you're in the ashram, you need to be going around smiling and laughing and not expressing who you are. Whereas, is that more so in the ashram, or is that more so out in the world?
Yeah, I don't know. It depends what your values are. For me, the values that I have line up with, I think, a lot of the values that the ashram has too. I definitely don't feel like I need to go around smiling or laughing all the time. Probably less pressure to do that here. In fact, like it's very common for people to wear observing silence badges. So you just like kind of wear a tag that says observing silence, and everyone respects that. And that just means that you're not in a place of speaking, which I love. Like that's a great freedom to just not have the pressure to like speak or interact with anyone else. And that's very, very, very rare to be able to do that. So yes, there are some certain ways. There's like a dress code here, and a lot of different things during lunch, asked to be silent during lunch, and some, no alcohol or drugs that you can use here and things like that. So there's definitely some restrictions of freedom, but again, it lines up with me for the most part. So I like it.
Thank you, Avi. It fascinates me. I have been on ashrams for an extended period of time, never like you have been, but it's a fascinating thought. Okay, Pastor Billy. And then we'll go back to Asma, who
Yeah.
lives in a society with many, many restrictions.
Right.
And yet she appears to be very free. And I spend a lot of time with her, so I feel comfortable saying that.
Yeah, I want to hear from Asma. Not sure what country you're in, Asma, but freedom also. And Avi, I appreciate what you had to say. I think for everyone in the human race, that my desire is for total freedom for them. And that being said, I think we also should say that when you have freedom, and Avi, you were talking about this, you have freedom to do certain things, and then you have freedom not to do certain things. Like, I have the freedom not to drink alcohol. I have the freedom not to use drugs, and no one. And oftentimes, I know in American society, we are pressured all the time, particularly, as a pastor, as I talk to people in the business world, they are pressured to be dishonest, or you're pressured to say something about yourself that you're not, in order to sell yourself to other people. So I'm thankful that I can counsel people and say, look, you have the freedom to really be free and not to be put into a mold where you're not going to be free. Does that make sense? And of course, for me, 50 years ago, and I know other people may have different comments or opinions on this, but 50 years ago, I found freedom in Jesus Messiah. And when I invited Jesus Messiah into my heart, then I experienced real freedom for my life. And of course, I share that freedom and that deliverance and that power with other people, and walking with God in the person of Jesus Messiah. And so freedom is a great thing. My heart, as I said earlier, as I go to places like Afghanistan and Pakistan, I go to places like Nigeria, Sudan, where I work. People are restricted in what they do. And last comment, the beauty, and Asma, you were talking about this earlier, the beauty of freedom of thought is that no one can restrict what you think about, right? I mean, it's pretty amazing. Nobody can get inside your head and say, well, don't think that way. I mean, they may say that, but that doesn't prevent you from thinking thoughts of freedom. And that's a beautiful thing when our thinking cannot be restricted. And then finally, for me, thinking free thoughts or thinking about freedom must lead to action. And in any nation in the world, any culture, any tribe where freedom has been restricted, it always begins in the mind. And so people want to be free. And, you know, that's one of the beautiful things as I read the writings of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., you know, those thoughts of freedom for African Americans and people of color in America, they started in his mind. And then, of course, he communicated those in his sermons and then started really a revolution here in America in the mid to late 60s. And so his freedom of thought, and here's a concept I'll throw out, led to freedom of action. And then that revolutionized an entire nation because of his freedom of thought. That led to action, and that led to liberation, that led to self-determination. And again, because of his connection with Jesus Messiah.
Thank you, Pastor Billy.
All right. I think Ozma's up. Ozma.
She is, and Ozma is from Pakistan. So she lives in a whole different culture than you and me and Avi, which makes it even more interesting. Ozma, you are up. Are you there, Ozma, or did you freeze? I think she's frozen. She'll be back in a moment. Back to freedom. Do you feel that the freedom begins within, or does the freedom begin without, Pastor Billy?
Yeah, it's both and. I know as I teach about freedom, again, with my bias, with my context, as I communicate to people, hey, you can be free. You can be free. It's and you know, that's the beauty, right? Avi and Carla and Ozma, that's the beauty of freedom, is that it's free, at least in our thoughts. But I believe in, and maybe I'm going off the rails here, but you know, in a place like where Ozma is in Pakistan, I mean, it cost something. When we talk about women's rights and girls' rights in Pakistan, and those are the countries I travel to, that women don't have rights, girls don't have rights, girls are prevented from going to school, girls are, look at Saudi, if you're a woman, you cannot get a driver's license up until recently. And so freedom is free, at least in our thoughts. But when you really put feet on freedom, and in a place like Pakistan or Saudi or other areas, even here in the US, when African Americans were not free, then when you step outside and start talking about freedom and you begin living freedom, hey, you know, blacks and people of color should be able to drink from the same water fountain as whites. We should be able to ride in the front of the bus rather than in the back of the bus. And then freedom has a cost. And I think we have probably many examples, at least on a cultural and societal level, where freedom does it. Freedom is not free. Freedom, there's a cost attached to freedom. When you think of all of the countries in Africa that were colonial empires, whether of Belgium or France or Italy or Britain, it cost them to get their own freedom, and lives were lost. So there is a cost to freedom, and those of us who want others to be free, I think we need to count the cost and say, hey, how can I encourage you to be free, either internally in your thought, in your action, or how can you be free externally in the society where you live, thinking of Ozma.
Many people around the world do say that in freedom, okay, you can be free because of your right, looking for your rights. But what about freedom of in yourself? Many people get caught in saying, I can never, let me speak about the English class. I can't come speak to you in English because I can't speak English. Now, and they say it beautifully and they talk to me beautifully, but I cannot speak English. That's coming from in their mind, and there's no reality to it. How can we help people get out of their mind and move forward? Does that make sense? And Ozma, I think it's back, but maybe one of you can answer that, and then we'll go back to Ozma. She's trying very hard to get back.
Avi, it's all you.
Ozma is back now. You want me to answer, Carla, or go to Ozma?
Answer, and then we'll go back to Ozma.
Yeah. How can people, what you're bringing up, Carla, is a wonderful point in terms of what we do, in terms of limiting ourselves with these beliefs that are not reality. Like I can't speak English, or I'm afraid to enter new territory, so I'm restricting myself, my freedom. One of the things that I think might free us up the most that I've been working on is my relationship with death, actually, because this is a great fear, and that fear leads to me taking less chances in general. But if I face that, if I spent time, like, that's real freedom, like meditating on death, accepting the reality of the situation is it could all end at any time, right? And not just saying that, feeling that reality in my being, that this can end. And when I do that, I think then I don't take things like, speaking a new language or doing this or that so seriously, because I've gone to like the most extreme place that there is to go. But we have something that's happened in our culture too, that we're taking ourselves so seriously, who I am, and making mistakes and being bad and all of that. I have that inside myself too. It's like, I want to look good. I want to perform well. And I want to get rid of that now. Like, I really want to be great at being bad. I want to really, really be good at that. And so, I don't know. It's just this feeling of lightness that I think that can lead to more chances and more freedom. So the freedom to not be obsessed with myself, not be obsessed with my personal being, I think is a great freedom.
Thank you, Avi. And I agree, losing that obsession of ourselves, saying, oh, I can't do it, all that fear keeps us from being who we are and feeling comfortable as who we are. Asma, are you back? Asma, are you back or no? Asma, I'm going to close my mic and you can open it up. Asma's having some.
Yeah, maybe if she goes off video and just does audio, there she is.
Asma, are you there? No. Okay. So freedom is more than, I mean, when people think of freedom, until just recently in the past few years, I always thought, oh, freedom is the 4th of July and I have the right, I can go shopping, I can do X, Y, and Z. But freedom is more than that. It's freedom in the mind. And does freedom and peace begin in our awareness within, in our soul, or does it begin with those around us? I don't know if I'm asking that clearly, but I want to go deeper into that.
Yeah, let me jump in here, then I'll hand it off to Avi and Asma. I again come with my bias, my notion that freedom is God-given. And if you look back at the early chapters of Genesis, or the second or third chapter of Genesis, again in the Jewish scriptures, in the Tanakh, God gave Adam and Eve complete freedom. You can be free. You can eat from this tree, but you can't eat from this tree. And so that was the freedom that God gave our first parents. And of course, they were free to make the wrong choice. And I think that that's where those of us as leaders come in, is we need to talk about freedom, but we also need to encourage people to make good choices and to be free to make good choices. So those choices that are destructive, yeah, do you have the freedom to do that? And again, it's, Carla, you were saying it starts in the mind. Yeah, we have freedom to make wrong choices. I mean, that's how God has made us. But I think the beauty of being connected in a good way to freedom is that we're going to make good choices when it comes to thinking about our lives and thinking about our relationships with other people. I mean, I talk to people all day long about, are you making a good choice? Are you making a good choice? And whether it's choosing the person you're going to be married to, is this a good choice? You know, that's an important decision. Is this job, is this employment going to be a good choice for you and your family? And Avi, I really was attracted to what you said in your last statement about thinking about you have the freedom to think about death, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about that, because I spend a lot of time talking to people about eternity and where you're going to spend the majority of your life. So I'd be happy to hear about that, Carla, if you want Avi to talk about that.
Absolutely. Let's see what he'll say.
What can I say more about this? You know, I have a practice when I take a bath, or anytime I'm in the water, maybe, but often it's when I'm in the bath, and I go under the water and I just exist under the water, right, for as long as possible. And it gets really interesting when I want to come up for air. And I those moments there, I mean, right in the regular span of time, maybe it only lasts a few seconds, but so much seems to happen there for me in those few seconds. I'm literally like allowing the pain to be, the fear to exist, and just sit with it until eventually I can't anymore and I have to come up for air. But the way that I see it is, by doing that practice, I'm creating this relationship, I'm fostering this relationship with death, that I think the point of it is that I'll feel more free in my life. And I think people do this stuff all the time, right? Like any kind of extreme activity is like, why am I doing? Why am I going rock climbing, jumping out of planes, like running marathons, right? It's like coming face to face with like this like ultimate reality frees me up to exist more lightly, because I don't want to be afraid. I really want to feel free. I just want to feel free to be me and to do what feels right. That's really it. Another obstacle, I'm shifting a little bit here, but something else I wanted to bring up is that an obstacle for this, I think, is other human beings. Because throughout the course of time, it appears to me that human beings have really liked to tell other humans what to do, right? Like we really think we know what's best for someone else's life. And the genuine humility is lacking. It's like what I'm coming to realize, like it's hard enough to make choices for my own life. I might be able to help someone else, but in no way do I think I have like the definite answer for you. I can offer something to you. I can offer you my perspective, but that's all that it is. It's an offering. But people thinking like you should do this, and I know that you should do this. Like, what is that? That creates this like confusion in my mind. And I'm like, well, I'm not free. I should listen to this outside force tell me what to do more than what's inside. And I kind of feel that leads to less freedom.
Pastor Bill, you look like you want to say something. Continue.
Yeah. This whole topic about freedom, I mean, who thinks about this, right? and Carla, thank you for driving the boat, the ship, the car, the train, whatever, the train of our thought on freedom. And I go back to, my heart breaks when I learn about girls and women in other nations that don't have freedom, and they don't have the freedom. And we're talking about basic stuff. I mean, they can think whatever they want, but they don't have the freedom to act on any of that free thinking. And as a result, they're not being educated, and they're forbidden to be educated. And so I think those of us as leaders and those of us who have a public forum, we need to be talking about freedom and how freedom can be freeing. However, as I said earlier, depending upon where you are, freedom has a cost. And of course, whether you want to talk about Mahatma Gandhi, I mean, he paid for the freedom and liberation from the British with his life. You think about Jose Marti in Cuba to be free from the Spaniards. He paid with his life. When you think about Dr. King or any of the other civil rights leaders in America, they paid for freedom with their lives. So it's a hard decision when you're going into areas that are not free, or nations or cultures or societies that are not free. And, and I wish Ozma was still on, like there is in Pakistan. I mean, people in Pakistan are not free, and it's heartbreaking. It's sad. But when you ask people who want to talk about freedom to actually exhibit that or do it, then you're probably talking about like Dr. King, paying with your life. And so freedom, I know people often say freedom is not free, and I think that that's an accurate statement. That one of the definitions of freedom that I looked at is that we always have to be working for freedom, because freedom is not it's not a given, whether internally or externally, right? I mean, if Avi, you talked about this, if we want to be thinking free in our thoughts and to be free from what other people think about us, and I love what you said, Avi, about And is this American or what? We need to be free from our self-obsession, right? That we are so obsessed with ourselves. Look at the magazines we have in America, Us. Is there a magazine called Me? It's all about me. So, that's one of the beautiful things that I like to talk about with people is we need to be free from our own self-obsession. And I think it starts there in our own minds. And, that's really the golden rule. That goes back to the Jewish scriptures about loving your neighbor as you love yourself. Now, everybody loves themselves. We all take care of ourselves for the most part. And, but that's what the Jewish scriptures talk about, is that we need to love our neighbor. And that goes back to what Avi was saying about when you're not self-obsessed, then you can care. You're free to care for your neighbor. You're free to live. I like the concept of living outside yourself. Is we're not always thinking about our needs and what we need, which is a tragic part of the tragedy of American culture. We're always thinking about ourselves rather than other people. And of course, I've selected a profession, a pastor, which is from the Latin word to feed. I have a responsibility to be feeding people all day long. And so I hope I've come to the place, Avi and Carla, where I am not obsessed with myself and all my needs, that I'm always thinking about, I have the freedom. Think about this. I have the freedom to think about other people's needs.
And that is important. I think many people get stuck in, I'm afraid this won't happen, so we don't think about the other person. The more successful people are, the more they're there to help and not to, say, what about me? There's a wonderful quote by Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, and I'm paraphrasing it, but he's talking about seva. When do you do something for someone else? Well, pick it up when you're worrying about yourself. That's when you really go out and do something for someone else. Because when you do that, you get out of yourself. And Avi, what do you think of that?
I think that's exactly right. That's a very, very powerful notion that's been brought up. The concept that I'm free to think about other people outside of myself. I am free to spend my life doing good for the rest of the world, or for whoever I choose to do good for. Even if I choose to do good for animals, I am free to take that action. I'm actually a believer that when we all search for what our purpose is, that we all come to the same conclusion, and that is seva, service, that we all want to serve. We share that with each other. We're actually service machines, right? But this other stuff has covered up that root desire to do good, which is connected to my freedom. If I feel free, I can get back to that, right? It's like Gandhi and Martin Luther King, like they became free themselves first. And once they were free, they became very interested in other people's freedom and using their freedom to do that. And, they're so free, I would say, that they didn't even look at maybe losing their lives. They wouldn't see it as having to pay a price, that, because you take two examples, right? Like just in the amount of time, like maybe they would have lived, another, 30, 40 years, whatever it may be. But I doubt that they would have had it any other way. The time that they were actually alive, like they were really living. And how many people live until 90, but they're not really living because they're not free?
That I'll just jump in, Avi. That is so true. You know, they were not thinking about, hey, if I live for another day, then that's fine. But if I don't, that's fine too. You know, that goes back to your comments about do we have freedom from the fear of death? I mean, I do, because of my relationship with God, with Jesus Messiah. You know, I'm free from that fear. And yet, when you look at Dr. King, I mean, it was just amazing how he never thought of himself. It was always, his whole life was other directed. And we see that in people that are leaders in freedom. I mean, it's not just America, it's not just India. There are so many examples of people who said, hey, you know what, we're going to lead in the area of freedom. And then they, you know, if we could somehow bring them back from the dead and would say, you know, Dr. King, were you ever disappointed that you lost your life at age 39? And, or Gandhi, not sure how old he was when he perished, but I'm sure that they would come back and say, nope, you know, as you said, Avi, it was worth it. It was worth it. We were working for freedom on a society and cultural level. But now conclude by saying, think about all the people that are not free, whether in their minds or in their lives. And it really leads you to break your heart. And so I pray for people to be liberated and to be free.
Now, if we're saying that, and does freedom really begin with others? Or is it, I don't want to say selfish, but selfish with the S? Is freedom really getting to know yourself on a whole deep level, deep within? I read the other day a quote that, again, I paraphrase, I never remember them, that God lives within our souls. When we get to that point where we're so silent, is that where freedom really begins?
Yeah, you know, my feeling is that I can always be more free. I can always grow more. I can always do more work. It's endless. And by becoming more free myself, I believe that that will have a ripple effect towards creating more freedom for other people. So while I totally agree and want to spend my life helping other people to be more free, I also know that I do that by not pretending that I don't still always have more work to do myself. That seems very important for me to remember that.
Yeah, that's so true, Avi. And many years ago, I used to wear a button that said, please be patient. God is not finished with me yet. So, you know, hey, we're all under construction, right? We're all under construction. We're all like getting to the place where we should be in life. And so I say, whether it's to my bride of 41 years or my 5 kids and their spouses or our 9 grandchildren, I was like, okay, you know, please be patient. God's not finished with me yet. I haven't I'm not at the highest level of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, I'm still yearning to be free as an individual. And so I always ask people who, and I think this is a good thing, when we think about when people criticize us. I mean, as a public figure, I get lots of criticism, you know, because you're out there, you're saying things, whether it's on you know, personal interactions. But the one thing I always encourage people that, hey, if you're being criticized, just say 2 words. Don't defend yourself, and just say, here are the 2 words. You ready? They're revolutionary. Thank you. Thank you. So if I'm delivering a message on a Sunday morning. I'm going to be speaking this coming week down in Washington, D.C. at what we're calling the Davos of religious freedom. It's going to be held in D.C. and people from around the world are going to be attending at this religious freedom summit. And I'm going to be speaking about some issues that are hard to talk about. How does war affect religious freedom? And I'm sure that I'm going to say some things that people don't like, but when they come up to me, instead of defending myself, I'm going to say thank you. I learned long ago, it's not worthwhile to defend ourselves, and Avi, I think that you mentioned this when you talked about self-obsession. Humility is a great thing. Humility is a great thing. And so when people I have the freedom to allow people to criticize me. Think about that. I have the freedom to allow people to criticize me. And then how do I respond? I have the freedom to say, thank you. And so I shoot up a quick prayer to God and I say, God, I know I'm going to be criticized, but when you serve me humble pie, just put a lot of Cool Whip on it. So, humble pie doesn't taste very good to human beings. And so I asked God, I said, man, just put a lot of Cool Whip on there, right? Who doesn't like Cool Whip, right? That fake whipped cream. And so put a lot of Cool Whip on that humble pie. Freedom.
Interesting, Dr. Billy. Just so everyone knows, did I call you doctor instead of pastor?
Yeah, that's so. I have an earned doctorate in urban emotional trauma. Just got it 2 years ago. So yeah, that's fine. Dr. Billy's fine.
I hate this microphone thing. I think we're going back to Zoom pretty soon. But this summit you're going to be at, I never heard of it. And is this the first year they're having it? And where is it going to be in case people are interested?
Yeah, actually, this is our fourth summit. For 2 years, it was run by the U.S. State Department. And it was held actually at the State Department. And then last year, because of the pandemic, the Polish government actually did the Religious Freedom Summit in July of 2020. And it was virtual, but it was administered by the government of Poland. Now it's completely free of, you could say, government interference. It's completely free, and it's being held July 13th, 14th, and 15th at the Omni Shoreham Hotel in Washington, D.C., which is at 2500 Calvert Street Northwest. And if you go to irfsummit.org, I believe that's the website, irfsummit.org. And our focus is religious freedom for all people everywhere in every nation. So think about that. I mean, we're talking about a global, we've gone from, as Avi and Asma have talked about, and Carla, if you talked about, we've gone from personal freedom. Now we're talking about global freedom. So there will be people probably from 45 or 50 countries, and they're going to be talking about religious freedom, particularly in areas where there is no religious freedom. So irfsummit.org, I believe, I'll look it up real quick, but I believe that is the website. Yeah, I'm sorry, irfsummit.com, irfsummit.com. And July 13th through the 15th, there is a registration fee. And so we're I believe over 800 people will be attending. That's the latest census that I got from that. So yeah, in Washington, D.C. And we're going to, it's basically, we're building this, Avi and Carla and viewers, as the Davos. I mean, everybody knows about Davos, and where people get together, the thinkers of the world, on economics, but this is the Davos of religious freedom. So earthsummit.com.
Okay, Pastor Billy, when we are finished, go into the chat on Facebook and put it in the MindPlore, on the MindPlore page. Put it in so people know what it is. Ozma had a technical difficulty, and that's what happened with her. She is very sorry. She's been apologizing in the chat and all over the place. Let's just realize that this did not happen, was not planned, and maybe we can come back at another time and discuss it with her, because I would be interested in hearing what she has to say. And believe it or not, we have been speaking for about an hour. I want to give Avi and Pastor Billy 1 minute each to add any extra words they want to say, and we're going to be closing down the show. Avi?
Yeah, I just appreciate this time, and this topic especially feels very important to me. So thanks for the opportunity to be here, connect with all of you. If you'd like to be in touch with me, many different ways to do it. I have a book called The Light in the Tunnel, which is a spiritual novel. A lot of it is talking. Yep.
Avi, we're not going to do personal advertising, but you can. Any more words about freedom?
Oh no, I think we've said enough. Thanks, Carla.
Okay, sorry about that. There's other ways you can do it on the page.
Yeah, I'll conclude briefly. Thank you for having me on today, Carla. Avi, a pleasure to meet you. Thanks for your email. I'll be in contact, and let's continue to export freedom to everyone that we can. Great topic, great discussion, and looking forward to hearing from Ozma and her perspective at another time. So take care. God bless. Great to be with you all.
Okay, guys, don't go anywhere. We're going to wave goodbye, and we will be back on Tuesday for another MindPlore with Carla and Friends. Let's wave goodbye. Okay.